I've had some big realizations in my life, in my time, in this time, in this life. Certain points where it was like something was revealed to me. Revealed to my mind, to my senses, to my reasoning, to a higher part of me maybe. Revealed. And with that revelation, it's like it brings a totally new perspective of life, and then life changes. And that's given me various skills, superpowers, strengths in different fields. The first time I went on stage, for example, the first time I went onto a stage to play a music concert with a guitar, for the first time, and then I realised that it wasn't how I perceived it from the audience side. It was a different perception. Eventually you build a bridge from one perception to the other, and you can see what it's like to come from the audience onto the performance, the stage of performance, into the light, into the magnifying glass. And there's a realization there. You're on stage and you're facing the opposite direction to all of the audience. You hold your right hand out and the rest of the audience hold their left hand out. And you realise that it's you that needs to change your own rules. Left becomes right. Forwards is backwards. It's like a reflection. And that the audience you're not singing at the audience or to the audience, but the audience are singing with you. There's a form of God presence within the audience because everybody's in a field together. And there's a certain God presence of being on stage because you know you're being judged to the nth degree. It's like a deal between two sides of this membrane of perception that in itself is maybe the crystal, the perfection, the perfect refraction, the window of perception. One of the biggest gifts given to me was the ability to see. When I say given to me, gifts, it's because it's almost like the step ladders, or some kind of transcendence from one place to the next, from one realization to the next revelation. And each time that happens inside and outside and inside and outside, like an onion. But the layers keep going within. And so as you learn or have a revelation, a realization, an epiphany, something that changes your perception, it's like almost given. It's almost you've reached a point where you can receive it, and before that you couldn't receive it. It was always there. That the obvious was always there. That window of perception was always open, but it was too high to see over the windowsill. And so over time we learn to climb, and we gain certain realizations, like I say, perception changes, and then sometimes we pass a window of perception and we can look out at the world, and then we continue to climb looking inwards so that we can get to the next window and look outwards. And sometimes the view isn't particularly nice straight away. I think it depends on the weather. You may look out that window and it's thunder and then lightning and raining coming in through the window. It's cold coming in through the window and you want to close the window and climb back down. But sometimes if you sit at the window and you just enjoy what you see, it changes, the weather changes, the fog clears, clouds drift past, a beautiful blue clear sky appears, and you can see over the valley, you can see over the mountains and fields, and you have a sense of no longer being lost. You know exactly where you are. You're in the centre of it all, high above. You see out. You can even see others who are lost from that height and waving at them to try and give them direction. And there's a certain seeing when you can see with your heart. You position your eye of reason, the eye of judgment, the eye of suspicion, the eye of curiosity, the eye of hope. That eye of seeing into the heart, or at least the heart space, what we imagine to be the heart. I think we only beckon the nature of reality with our intent, and that intent is enforced by the word. That word may be enforced on the inside by understanding, comprehension of that word, and on the outside by the utterance of that word to give it volition. In essence, that's only beckoning. For the nature of change. And that's enough influence. We never have control over anything. We never have control over our heartbeat or our breath. We can stop breathing for a while. We can influence things. We can influence the cycles. There again, the revelation or the realization that we don't have control. We have influence. The influence, for example, to sow a seed, and for that seed to gain root and branch and fruit and grow and multiply and sustain itself in harmony with its surroundings, bringing its part to surroundings, being of service to its environment. In purpose, in a kind of higher natural purpose. Obviously the plants and the animals and insects seem to accept things the way they are and just live. They communicate, they think, and they sense the world, they have cognition. But they don't construct a second reality inside. Heaven and hell within. And some call it just imagination, just a place where you go when no one will talk to you. The imagination is filled with potency, but it's only the potency of any seed. And without nurture, without the right, without the right earth or place for that seed, the right timing. Without that, then there is no growth anyway, so there's no potential. And life isn't just a static status thing, where you have the seed and the seed is the thing. We're very obsessed by things. Almost life itself, a tree becomes a thing, an object, sometimes less valuable than, say, a car. When when the tree is in growth, and to take that life away from it, it's irreversible. There's an obvious difference between something that has life and something that has no life, that's, say, made by man. And then we could like say, what has a soul? Do plants have souls? Do animals have souls? Do all humans have souls? Do we have heart? Are these just human concepts and just words in it, so we can coexist? After all, we're not creating words to impose our reality on nature, but to impose a reality on each other, which in turn leads to our actions, our behaviours, which bring an imbalance to our own lives and in turn into nature. But nature is forgiving. It knows we're sick. In any sense of consciousness or that nature would have, would know that people who are mistreating nature, the nature wouldn't be making presumptions and lawsuits and things. It would just simply see it as being sick and respond in ways. But in our mindful approach to existence, we think that this is just all happening automatically, and we take it so much for granted that trees grow upwards and bear fruit, and we live from that fruit, and it's all a big system together that we are a part of. You know, people separate themselves from that system. And in fact, even the man-made systems that are created seem to protect people from their own foolishness more than they realise. I hear so many times from people this attitude that, about the way the system is, and how foolish people are, and how stupid this law is, and how this is unjust. And I see most often it's coming from an observer angle, without judging that person and saying, you know, they should get up and do something. No, but the actual judgment is coming just simply from a witnessing, from an observer. You know, so it's not really a judgment. It's a reaction. It's a response from potentially being ill. I know myself. I like, you know, you try to listen to everybody, and you expect your closest friends and family to be really honourable, honest with you, and you can have a laugh with them and use all kinds of language, but there's a hidden honour there. And so that same honour that we have, and love and respect and things we have between our own family and friends, pets, the animals that we love, talk to and communicate with, give names to, buy things, and our houses and our possessions, talismans, things that ancestors have given to us. The garden, the plants, the vegetables, everything. We give that our own value, and that's good. But then it's dangerous when we forget that other things have value. When that value system that's created actually devalues other things. That this house is worth more than that piece of land, or that tree, or that beautiful lake, or that river. You know, that these man-made things are more important than the natural things that are just taken for granted because they're already there. Nobody owns them. You can't claim much of, this is my tree. You know, it belongs to itself. So there's a tendency for man, if man wants to own something, he has to modify it, make it in his own image, and most often then neglect it, destroy it, because we lack over the years the wisdom to deal with nature. We lack a certain integrity. And in that whole process, people like myself, we can feel it. We can see in people's eyes that they have less respect for you than somebody of a higher, say, status in their eyes. Say somebody who's wearing the most expensive suit and tie is worth more than somebody who's wearing a cheaper suit. You'd be better off wearing a tracksuit, a sports suit, and then you could pretend you're not at work. So people will judge each other by their looks and by all kinds of things, by reputation, by what other people say about them. Even though that they knew that's not true, they wouldn't want the status quo to reject them. It's the same as with the law, some, like the honour amongst criminals, that if one gets caught, he doesn't tell on the others. But in reverse, when one person gets caught, caught just sacrificed in the name of injustice, and all the others let that injustice happen in order to save their own necks. That's where society is, really. And I feel people sometimes, and at least a lot of people, I've got to admit that most people are decent people. A lot of people, I'm quite tall, I don't exactly, I look a little bit scary maybe to some people. I smile a lot, I'm polite, I'm really well-mannered, and I listen to people, I don't push my ideas on things. But nevertheless, I'm tall, I'm big, and but nevertheless, people accept me, generally. But then there's situations where certain people think that they have the authority to look down on me because they've got some kind of status that I'm not aware of. And most often they think that they can fall back on their legal systems and laws and things like that. They feel like they can fall back on their money and their reputation and their friends. It's dangerous for them when they look at me and make the obvious, maybe obvious presumption that someone would make. I look very closely and listen very closely for everybody, for them, for everybody, to protect them from themselves if necessary. I've researched a lot about law, the foundations of law, all the way down to a divine law level, but all the way up to a basic bylaws and statutes, and contracting laws, and public laws, private laws, broadcasting laws. Inheritance laws, there's so many different laws that if someone thinks they can fall back on the law, then they need to make sure that their own evidence and their own argument and their own reason is in place. And so often people come, they have no reason, they only have the law. And now, if someone like me knows the law, then I know they're only playing poker with me. They're playing me. They've only got a certain amount of law. And if they can give me a reason, they can get further. But if they lack reason and they try to fall back on the law without giving reason, and that reason is, it could be their own reason, it could be just reason, but that reason has to be logical and it has to have certain qualities of reason, obviously. Reason isn't just an opinion. It's not an excuse. Reason is like the highest faculty of cognition. And we can all be forgiven by mistakes, and it doesn't take an expert or a genius to tell the truth or to even get through life with virtues and everything else. So it's not asking anything of anybody. Even a child can have a reason. But if that reason is an excuse, or if that reason is just like I am allowed because the law says so, these types of things, then it's walking on thin ice, especially when we know more about the law and how it's founded. The law is there to stop disputes for people, not to control what's right and wrong. And so at the point where somebody starts to try to use the law as their argument, as their reason, as their offensive, the law itself won't necessarily be happy with that. The law itself doesn't need a law-abiding citizen. It needs a good citizen. It needs a citizen who can resolve a dispute without invoking law. It needs a good citizen who can learn from the law to not actually go into its courtrooms or summon its enforcers, its enforcement officers, policemen. The law itself isn't really the policeman, the judge, the courtroom, or any of this. The law is a tradition. And it's an international, national, regional, local, personal, universal and particular thing. Law institutions give us the impression that law is this, that, or the other, and for sure, every different institution has its own set of rules and regulations, and if you're a part of that institution, if you're a part of an organisation or company, you adhere to its rules. As a society, we may agree on rules, but not really. We just agree that we agree to those rules being enforced. We don't necessarily agree to the rule itself. So really for me, to bring this to a little bit of an end, I think one of my missions really for myself is to find remedy to the sickness of society, and then to be able to give that to others, and to find that remedy isn't necessarily a remedy that needs everybody else to take part. It's a remedy that I can take for myself, and even if the conditions stay the same, my world gets better. But then with the extra that my remedy is your remedy, is everybody's remedy. It's a universal remedy. Obviously you can't give everybody the remedy, but if you take the remedy and others see the benefits or feel your presence, that in itself may be enough to heal, because maybe it's a catalyst. The remedy is like an antidote, like a serum, like something that triggers a part of our immune system that's always been there, and that immune system can be triggered without legal remedy. It's just triggered by one trusting more in oneself than in society's norm, in society's structures, in society's rules and ways. You can spot it. People say, oh, you need money. La 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 la. You can tell it in that tone of voice, Obviously we need money in a society where we've agreed to use money. And people say, oh, but you need to get a job, or you need to do this, or, and some things are right. Or you need a passport, or and they become almost police enforcers. I know it myself. I tell I'm my own police force, so I don't need to actually bug other people with it. And I know people mean well, I wouldn't go out there and do that because... And you're thinking, who's enforcing the law in this world? It's no longer the legal institutions that we blame. In fact, we don't hear a word from those. We don't learn the law from legal institutions. We somehow pick it up from other people, from the gossip, from television, from the newspaper. We don't read paragraphs and articles of legislation. None of us. Even lawyers only read a certain segment that they're specialised in. But somehow, like a giant puppet and 1,000 million puppet, people pulling the strings. We often see the puppet master as one man holding the strings of society, But no, what we've done is we've created giant puppets with strings that hundreds of men have to pull one string to make the arm go up. You know, hundreds of men running around to make this arm go up, hundreds of men running there to make the leg move. You know, hundreds of men to make the head move, and everybody, all the spectators, all the people just sitting watching, they're looking up at this giant puppet that's been operated by millions of people. And we start to idolise that puppet as if it's got life, it's got spirit. Yeah, it's got a million spirits going into it, living spirits, living people into that material object that no longer has life. It's not a tree, it's now wood. And it's been given life by all of these people. And the people seem so small, so irrelevant, so little, so uninfluential, and yet so many people make that one big puppet figure move and convince everybody that it's alive. And for me, that's like society, that's like government, that's like a nation, that's like any club, group, community. It has that aspect. We become the puppet masters. Okay, I'll leave it there. Thanks a lot for watching. See you later. Cheerio.